Hello. Hello, everybody. So, I'm Gordon Bellamy. I'll be your moderator today. And I love Dungeons and Dragons. Do any of you love Dungeons and Dragons? Are any of you a little Daggerheart curious? Well, then I have great news. Today, we have the lead game designer of Dungeons and Dragons. We have the game director of Critical Role, Jeremy Crawford. Jeremy, please join us. Thank you, Jeremy. Come on in. Welcome to Comic-Con Malaga.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. So, Jeremy, welcome. So we titled this panel, The Rebirth of D&D, for a reason. Can you tell us what rebirth means to you? And how did you and your team open the doors, invite the community into shaping this new chapter?
So, over 10 years ago, we had the amazing opportunity to reimagine Dungeons and Dragons. And that reimagining is now known as 5th edition D&D. And our team, what we really desired was to reunify the D&D audience and create a version of D&D that spoke to the power of the game going back to its origins in the 1970s, and that would also open the doors for new people to play for years to come. And our team, looking at that goal, how do we bring everyone in to play this game? We realized if we really want to make sure we're capturing the magic that appeals to everybody, if we really wanted to make sure that we were also opening the doors for as many new people as possible, we needed to turn our attention and our ears to all of you. And so in many ways, D&D has had a renaissance in the last 10 years because of you and millions of other fans like you. Because as we created this new version of the game, it was your voices, your feedback to our public playtests, your conversations online that inspired us to tweak the game, sometimes in small ways, and to change it sometimes in major ways to create a version that we hoped would reach as many people as possible. And so you can only imagine the amazing delight we have had over the last 10 years to see D&D just grow and grow and grow and grow. Because never before in the game's history has this happened. In all other editions of the game, and here I'll go back an image, including the 4th edition that I was also on the team that worked on 4th edition D&D, for all other editions of D&D, after its launch, the sales then slowly began to decline. 5th edition is the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons where over its 10-year period, the sales just went up. And we often were wondering, what's happening? and I think what was happening is that all of your contributions and the work that we did inspired by your dreams for the game truly reached some part of people's heart for this game. And then I think a big part of what happened is you started telling your friends. You started inviting your family. You started to invite your coworkers, your classmates, and say, come check out this game. This game might be now half a century old, yet for many people, the game now feels like it's brand new. And my dream, as we just celebrated 50 years of D&D and 10 of its most prosperous years, that we are at the beginning of 50 more years for Dungeons and Dragons, and hopefully 50 more beyond that, and 50 more beyond that.
Well, I have good news. You have a room full of new D&D friends, right?
Yes.
let's take you back. I want to go back as you began your journey. Like, what were your North Star inspirations? Like, what books, trips like this, films, experiences that you've carried with you into redesigning D&D?
So always when I'm working on D&D, I am looking at both the past, the present, and the future. And so part of looking at the past, and this was true over a decade ago when we were creating 5th edition D&D, I went back to the science fiction and fantasy novels from the early 20th century that inspired Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson and their friends when they created the first version of D&D. In the first edition of Dungeons & Dragons, in its Dungeon Master's Guide, there was actually a reading list that Gary Gygax provided of the books that inspired their design. This included the Elric novels, The Lord of the Rings, various stories by H.P. Lovecraft, Conan stories. As a part of the design work for 5th edition, I not only, and the rest of the team, we not only studied previous editions of D&D, but we dove into those old books and stories to really understand firsthand what inspired the original creators of D&D about those stories, and what inspiration could we take into them. But then we also were looking at, and this informs the work I do now, whether it's on D&D or at Critical Role, work I'm currently doing on Daggerheart, I'm also looking at what's inspiring people currently in other games. I am a gaming omnivore, so I'm playing tons of video games, board games. I watch anime, I read manga. I'm always looking at what is inspiring people and how can we bring some of that inspiration into D&D, because for me that's a part of making the game inviting to the current generation, which will then create the next generation as well. I also personally have a deep love for ancient mythology, world history, so also a big part of my inspiration when working on any fantasy world are the places I travel to, like Malaga, other places I've traveled to in Europe. I love reading ancient occult books, ancient histories, to see how people thought in the past, to then bring that into the worlds we create, the adventures we design, and bring some of that inspiration in. Because part of the magic of D&D at its heart is that it brings so many different perspectives into one place. Like that is sort of the core of D&D, of different characters with different perspectives and different capabilities coming together to face giant monsters and other problems and emerging victorious. You think of the bookish wizard, the strong fighter, the cunning rogue, the prayerful cleric, and all of the other character classes. Each one of them is bringing something special. And what that means is when designing the game, not only designing 5th edition, but also the many books that came after it, such as then the Dungeon Master's Guide and others, we want to make sure we're drawing on as many inspirations as possible so that there is this beautiful buffet of options for you as players and DMs to use in your games.
Oh, that's so cool. So, okay, it's a rare opportunity. So take us deeper in, because we're here with you. So if we were snooping through your travel journal, through the library of readings or games, what would surprise us? Like, what would be some hidden gems that people might not think, like, oh, this actually impacted your design?
So if you were to look at my library at home, one, you would see tons of role-playing games. I love to read and play many other role-playing games, and now I'm working on another one, Daggerheart. And I love to see what other designers are doing with their worlds, with their adventures, so that we can kind of, as game designers, be in conversation with each other and see what are the innovations that are going on in other people's games. I think it would also surprise you how many books of medieval magic I have in my library, because I actually love to study what what people in the real world were doing in the Middle Ages when it came to their thoughts about magic and the gods. And a lot of that inspires what I do in my work. Even on this trip, the
world premiere.
Yes. Whenever I travel to a country, I often love to bring a book with me that's about something from that country's past. And so on this trip, I'm reading a book about Spanish Kabbalists from the Middle Ages. And I love having, when I'm experience a place, getting to experience it in the present day, but also learn something about the deep past, and then gain inspiration for future designs.
Wow. I mean, when you think about that, you have to walk a tightrope, right? You have to honor D&D's proud past, but also allow room for fresh voices, for new players. How do you decide what traditions to preserve and which to let evolve?
So part of knowing what traditions to preserve, that really came down to that conversation that we had at the beginning of the 5th edition design period with you and so many others. We turned to the massive global D&D audience to find out what magical parts of this game you want to see preserved. Another thing that we did is we looked carefully at every edition of D&D and identified which pieces were present in every edition, despite its many evolutions, and then which pieces were sometimes there and sometimes not. What that did for us is it helped us create a list of things. If there was a list of this has been in D&D in every edition over its 50-year period, that usually was something we wanted to protect. Whereas if it's something that was sometimes there in edition and then not in another, that identified for us that that's something that we could boldly change, while still communicating with the audience to see, have we gone too far with the change or have we hit the target? We also, through our Unearthed Arcana playtest series on the Wizards website, and now we have something similar at Darrington Press, where I work now, called The Void, where we preview new game design. That's also a chance for you to get a look behind the curtain to see what are we currently cooking up, and does it resonate with you? Does it look exciting? Does it look fun? Is it something you want to see in your game? And then the other thing that we do when deciding what old things to preserve and what new things to bring in is we just play a lot. And we play some more. And we play even more. Because there's no substitute as a game designer for playing your game. And in D&D's case, also DMing it. And I brought up on the screen the Curse of Strahd I saw someone go, yay. How many of you have played or DM'd Curse of Strahd? Oh, I'd love to see it. So Curse of Strahd is based on my favorite adventure from my childhood, the original Ravenloft, which was in 1st edition D&D. And it was the adventure that really first introduced narrative storytelling based on the motivations of a villain to D&D. It's funny, these days we associate D&D with narrative, with storytelling. But when D&D was first introduced to the world, the narrative and the storytelling actually was not built into the adventures themselves, but instead just emerged through play. And so when we had the chance early in 5th edition to revisit Ravenloft and reimagine it, led by my friend Chris Perkins, this was our chance to do exactly, Gordon, what you were talking about, of preserve some of the magic from the past while also bringing in the new. And so any of you, if you compare Curse of Strahd to the original Ravenloft was only 32 pages long. Whereas Curse of Strahd is over 200 pages long. And you will see that all of the original adventure is in there. And then there's all this additional material. And so what we did is we consulted with Tracy and Laura Hickman, the original designers of Ravenloft, to really get at the heart with them about what was critical to the original Ravenloft, And then we expanded and expanded. And a lot of that expansion, a lot of that new, was actually inspired by play. Because for years, I had been DMing a game going all the way back to when I was in high school. So this is when I was a teenager, in a world I created to be the world that the Castle Ravenloft was originally from.
Okay.
And so what we did, Chris Perkins and I and the rest of the team, when we were building out Curse of Strahd, is we took elements from our campaign and put it into this book. And I bring this up to just as an illustration of how powerful play can be for us as designers to inspire our work, but I also bring it up to encourage all of you who might aspire to be writers or game designers to don't sleep on those great stories that are coming up in your games. Let them inspire you, because what you're experiencing in the game that you're playing with your friends could be the seed for a book that you might write someday, or a game you might design, just as our play ended up inspiring all sorts of material that ended up in the Curse of Strahd. I could give examples like this from many different 5th edition books. I chose Curse of Strahd again just because it's near and dear to my heart, being connected to my favorite adventure of all time.
Well, I've got some good news for you. We're in Spain. And Spain isn't just awesome. Sorry, I'm a Spain fan. I love it here. But it's also the home of a rich tradition of storytelling, from Cervantes to like the indie creators that we're seeing on the floor right here at the show. How do you think specifically European and Spanish perspectives shaping D&D going forward, and what do you hope that Spanish players, some of you are Spanish players, will bring to the table?
So part of the magic of any role-playing game is the DM and the players are the storytellers. And each of you in your games, whether you're playing your game in Spanish or Italian or French or another language, you are creating something beautiful that is all your own. And what my hope is that those stories that are arising in the role-playing games here in Spain, as well as in other parts of Europe, will inspire adventures and games written, whether for D&D or another game, will inspire experiences that reflect perspectives of the world that are unique to Spain or wherever it is that you're from. Because I think each part of the world has a rich storytelling culture that can then lead to beautiful role-playing experiences. And so really my request of all of you, for any of you, if you feel that stir to be a writer, a game designer, please pursue it. And as you pursue it, bring your experience, bring your culture to it, because I guarantee you, you will bring something special that the world hasn't seen before. And so my hope is in this auditorium or someplace else at Comic-Con, there is someone is going to create the next great thing for D&D or for another RPG.
Awesome. Here's a question I have. So you've been a player, you've been a DM. Which role do you lean towards? And as importantly, how does that influence how you create and design?
So this might seem like me dodging the question, but I love both DMing and playing.
Right on.
And I started playing D&D when I was 6 years old, back in the 1970s. And I then, after discovering the magic of creating my own character, my very first character was a magic user who, back in first edition D&D, you were lucky if you had 2 hit points and you cast one spell for the day and that was it. And then the rest of the day you were maybe throwing a dagger or a dart and then hiding, hoping you didn't die because the goblin breathed on you. So that was my starting experience, being a little terrified magic user. But then, of course, over time, got to experience the thrill of leveling up, and then in later editions, starting off with more than 2 hit points. But then also early on as a child, I was bitten by the bug of being the dungeon master. Because for me, there is an amazing thrill to build a scenario, an environment, a world, a cosmos for your friends, and get to then see how they respond to the things that you create. Because really, any of you who is a dungeon master for D&D or a game master for another RPG, you are a game designer. Because being a game designer means creating gameplay experiences for other people to enjoy, which is exactly what a dungeon master and a game master do. And so anytime someone asks me, what should I do to start becoming a game designer, I often say, be a game master, because you will experience in real time people responding to what it is that you have created. You will also experience in real time how people will often do whatever they want in response to what you've created. How many of you as a dungeon master have had players who just ignore everything that you created and wander off in another direction? Yes. And for me, that is a part of the wonder of being a dungeon master, is rather than fighting against that, instead embracing it, realizing that particularly in a role-playing game, that's part of the wonderful surprise of players doing things that you never imagined. The book cover I have up here, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, is a great example of how I can't choose whether I like playing or DMing more, which is why Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and it's in the title, has a little bit of everything in it and is both for players and for dungeon masters. And this was something that we did again later when we did Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which you're really seeing in both of these books my deep love for both playing and DMing. And then with this book in particular, you're also seeing my love for anything having to do with witches. Because when we were making Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and we were pondering which character should be featured here, I was the one pushing for, let's have it be Tasha, because I'd always been fascinated by her since I was a kid, and also because I wanted to have a witch on the cover.
That's so cool. So let's go deeper. We're here. It's the first ever San Diego Comic-Con Malaga. If you could hand every person in this room and in the European tabletop community one simple storytelling or design tip, something to try right away, what would it be?
Say yes. My advice as a dungeon master or a game master or a game designer is say yes to what it is that your players want to try. Now, we all know as dungeon masters, that doesn't always mean they're going to succeed, but let them try. We often, as dungeon masters, have to fight the urge to say no, because we might be thinking, yeah, but I planned this other thing. I wanted the story to go in this particular direction, or I want the rules to function in a particular way. And part of the wonder of a tabletop role-playing game is it provides a vast territory for us as game designers and dungeon masters and game masters to say yes, give it a try. And then we turn to the dice to be the ultimate decider of is it going to succeed or not. One of my favorite things as a game master is letting the dice decide. I say yes, I turn to the die, whether it's a 20-sided die in D&D or 2 D12s in Daggerheart, and I look to the dice and I say, you tell me what's going to happen. Because I then love the storytelling challenge as a dungeon master to then narrate what does the die mean in the world. Sometimes there will be astounding success. There'll be the character who is a weakling, has an 8 strength, yet because they rolled a 20, somehow managed to lift up that stone door. I love those moments. Similarly, I love it when the genius character tries to figure out the puzzle and then rolls a 1 and then figure out, oof, what kind of bad day are they having that has resulted in them failing the thing that they normally would have succeeded at. Those moments of surprise, those come up when you as a game master say yes, when you say yes to the next fun thing happening, and then you go from there.
I've got a follow-on to that, which is this. I mean, there's a whole new generation of tabletop players, of DMs, players out there. What do you hope they'll learn about themselves in these worlds that you're now forging and reforging?
I always hope that not only when I'm sitting down to play a role-playing game, or I'm sitting down to design a book, or I'm sitting down to be the game master, my dream is that each of us always learn something about ourselves, that by inhabiting a different character from ourselves, by wandering in a world of our imagination, and if you're the dungeon master, while portraying all sorts of different strange monsters and describing these magical places, that in the process, we begin to see ourselves and our friends in new ways. I think that's actually one of the reasons why so many friendships are forged around the D&D table. Because in creating a story, in building whole worlds together, in doing that magic with our friends, so often we see them in a new light. We don't just see them as Sarah or Robert. We see Sarah as Patricia, the archmage. We see Robert as Sebastian, the cleric. And as they play those characters, we discover new aspects of them. We see new creativity in them. We see their ability to work together to solve problems. We see how funny they are. And in that process, I think so often we end up richer as people in our hearts, in our spirits. And so my hope is that always that's going on at the table, that it's not just a fun game, but that we are seeing each other in new ways.
That's so, okay, sorry, that's awesome. I'm talking to Jeremy Crawford, y'all. So cool. Finally, looking ahead, and I say finally because we're going to have some questions from the audience, right? There's a few questions out there? Okay. Finally, looking ahead, how do you hope to surprise us here in Spain and across the D&D community in the coming years? What is the invitation that you want to extend next?
So I cannot wait for you all to see what we're currently building at Critical Role, because one of the things I think that's going to be a delight is, first off, Critical Role and other live play shows like it have had an immense impact on this big rebirth of D&D and role-playing games in general. Because before this current generation of D&D, when someone who'd never played before would, wonder what goes on in this game, it was often hard to describe. But in the last 10 years, thanks to Critical Role and Dimension 20 and many other live play shows, you can now just go onto YouTube, Twitch, other services, and see what the game is like. You can see what a delight it is. You can see that it's not as intimidating as the big rule book might make it look like. And up on the screen now is the brand new Player's Handbook that just came out, which is the biggest Player's Handbook that the game has ever had. But despite how big it is, you all know that once you start playing, it's not actually that hard. And live play shows have really helped communicate that. And so how that connects to the work that I'm doing now is Chris Perkins and I are currently designing material, new game mechanics, new character options that the world will see for the first time in Campaign 4 of Critical Role. So this has never happened before, where game designers are working hand in hand with the makers of the show, and you will get to see not only these new options in the the campaign, but you'll also get to see them evolve, because we're going to be watching and seeing what's fun, what is resonating with people watching, what's resonating with the players at the table. And so you might see some of those new game options evolve over the course of the campaign. We're also doing new design for Daggerheart. So in addition to the D&D design that we're doing for Campaign 4, we have announced that we're building a devilishly scary campaign setting for Daggerheart that I think is really going to show people just how far Daggerheart can go in its exploration of different fantasy genres. And we're also building an epic campaign, epic in scale, similar to the scale of Curse of Strahd for D&D. We're building something like that now for Daggerheart.
Oh.
And so much more. We have a bunch of things we can't announce yet, but I can't wait for you all to see what we're building for these games, and I can't wait to see what you all are dreaming up in the things you create, whether you're designing material for a game, whether you're doing a live play, or whether I just happen to get to see your game when I'm at a convention. And so there is so much coming, but like any great D&D campaign, you're going to have to wait until you're deeper into the dungeon over the next few months to find out what's next behind that door.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, we're here right now. I know there's someone with a mic here, perhaps. Is there a person with a mic? I can't see you. We're going to go natural first. Right there, white shirt, hat. You're first. Yeah, you. Stand up and project. Lapsed players, that's the question.
Yeah, the question is, what if you're coming back to D&D after being away for a long time? So the good news is, particularly if you haven't played since around 2nd edition, is in many ways 5th edition was designed as a follow-up to 2nd edition, but also then bringing in great elements from 3rd and 4th edition. So if you have not played D&D for several editions, because we made sure to include as many treasures from previous editions as possible, you're going to find a lot that feels very familiar. It will feel like sort of coming home. And this is something a lot of people have said, especially actually if they haven't played since 2nd edition, that 5th edition feels like the next evolution of 2nd edition D&D. When it comes to where to start, I think right now you have 2 great choices. One of the last things I worked on at Wizards of the Coast before moving over to Critical Role was a new starter set for D&D called Heroes of the Borderlands, which is a reimagining of Keep on the Borderlands, one of the first adventures that was ever created for D&D. And Heroes of the Borderlands, the new starter set, is a fantastic introduction to D&D, where it includes also a lot of fun physical components. So even if you're an advanced player, you might want this set just so you can get like all of the gold pieces and the hit point tokens and the monster cards. So I think that is a great place to start if you really want a gentle entry in. If instead, if you imagine D&D as a swimming pool and you want to dive right into the deep end, then I would recommend picking up the New Player's Handbook, where you get all the player options that you would want, and you will get to build so many different types of characters for your campaign ahead.
Awesome. Let's open my hips. Who's over here has got a question? I see you right there. Yes, stand up, let us know. Oh, I think
Right here?
Oh, okay. Pass the mic, we'll share. All right, you'll be next. We got you. You're next. You go.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your work and the big good time that you gave to all of us. I think I can speak for all of you guys. As you said, playing is inspiring us for creating new worlds and new stories. But a few days ago, I met a musician who claims that the most that you are finding for inspiration, the less that you are going to get it, and the farther you are going to go from finding it. Did I?
The harder you try to find inspiration, the harder it is. Like it's more emergent behavior, I think.
He said that inspiration is going out to you. It's going farther when you are looking for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Can you agree with that?
So the question is basically, will inspiration run away from you if you chase after it?
Exactly. Thank you.
And I think often that is true. Because I think one of the best ways to be ready for inspiration is to have an open heart, an open mind, and open ears, and simply be ready to be surprised by it. Because too often, if we are chasing inspiration, we're actually chasing a preconception. And if we want to be truly inspired, that requires us to be in a more sort of open-minded place where we're just ready to be surprised. So yeah, I think it's really important to cultivate that desire, that readiness for the unexpected thing to inspire us.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's get the mic to that person. Oh, you got one. You have it? No, get the mic over there. Everyone work together. Right there with the hands up. Right there. See them right there.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, perfect. So you've worked for over 10 years on D&D, and now you've switched to a whole new, role-playing game. If you were to decide to design the new Dungeons and Dragons edition, let's say edition 6, which elements of Daggerheart or of other games that you've played on, you've built or you've worked on, would you import to this new edition? And similarly, now that you are on Daggerheart, which elements of D&D you're missing in Daggerheart and you would like to import over there?
That's a great question. So if I were designing a new edition of D&D, I would start with a very similar position that I started with the team when we made 5th edition. And that is a position of listening. And that is especially important with D&D given its legacy. When you're designing a brand new game, it's very different, because when you're designing a brand new game, you sort of can kind of charge into the unknown and see what's going to work for players and what's not working. With D&D, which is so established, you have to do a lot of preliminary listening to make sure you even understand what the current D&D audience wants. And so really that requires, as a designer, a lot of humility with D&D, to realize that if you have the amazing privilege, as I had, to lead the design of a player's handbook, in fact, multiple player's handbooks, is the humility to realize this game was originally designed by somebody else, it was developed by other people, and it will be developed long after I'm gone. And so that listening is critical. Now, if I did get the chance to do it. One of the things I would love to bring in from Daggerheart is Daggerheart does a really splendid job of gamifying certain narrative elements. Here's an example. I love how in Daggerheart, through the use of hope and fear, you can actually see, as the game master is amassing fear, that the danger is mounting. And when I'm playing Daggerheart, I love that feeling of like, oh no. The game master is sitting on 20 fear. What are they going to do? And I really love that expression of narrative through game mechanics, and I think it would be really interesting to explore something like that in D&D that would feel natural in D&D. Now, when I'm working on Daggerheart, as I am right now, which is really fun because in many ways it makes me feel like I'm the new kid on the block. I went from working, I worked on D&D for nearly 18 years, and now I get to be like a kid again and work on a different game. Probably the main thing I miss with Daggerheart is just the mountains and mountains of monsters that I had to play with in D&D. But I consider this a very positive thing to be missing because it then means I get to make a bunch of adversaries for Daggerheart. So in a way, it's a good thing that I'm missing them.
I hope to see those adversaries soon because I'm really excited to play Daggerheart and I'm missing the same adversaries that you're talking about.
And that is one of the signs of it being such a new game because Daggerheart is only a few months old. And so I look forward to when we get to reveal many more things, including adversaries for the game.
Thank you very much.
All right, now, Jeremy, we met the ultimate adversary, and that's time. Yeah, I know. Everyone's looking at their watches right now.
How did that happen?
You know what? In a great way. We've been on a great journey together. But I want to be sure to leave our last 2 minutes for anything that you just want to share, right? This is a world full of people who spent their, parts of their lives playing the games of the past and hopefully some of the games of your future. What do you want to say?
Thank you so much, first, for all being here today.
Yeah.
Also, thank you for all the playing and DMing that you do of D&D as well as other RPGs, all of the live play shows that you watch. And as I said earlier today, my dream is that among you, there is the next great designer because this hobby that we all love, where we build worlds together, it relies on us. It relies on us as people with imaginations on fire, dreaming up worlds, dreaming up games. And so please go on and pursue that. And I can't wait to see what you are creating.
That's so cool. Everyone, please help join me. Let's thank Jeremy Crawford. Let's go. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Thank you. Thank you.